In the twilight of the ancient world, a Roman ship carrying Greek treasures was swallowed by the sea. For 2,000 years it held its secrets in the silent dark, guarding a single object of impossible complexity, a clockwork universe of bronze and brass that would rewrite the story of human genius. The ghost in the deep our story does not begin in the gleaming halls of a Roman villa or the bustling workshops of ancient Greece, but in the brine and the blackness of the Aegean deep in the year 1900. Here, a team of Greek sponge divers led by Captain Dimitrios Kondos were battling the fierce currents and unpredictable winds that churn the sea around the small rocky island of Antikythera. It was a place of little consequence, a barren stepping stone between Crete and the Greek mainland, known more for its treacherous waters than for any harbor it offered. A violent storm had forced their small vessel to take shelter in the island's shadow, and as they waited for the weather to break, a diver named Elias Stadiatis decided to make a speculative descent in the unfamiliar waters. He went down in the standard way, a heavy copper helmet sealed to a canvas suit, fed by a hand-cranked pump on the deck above. He sank through the layers of blue, from the sunlit surface to the murky twilight below, until he reached the seabed some 150 feet down. What he saw there in the dim, wavering light sent a jolt of terror through him. He signaled frantically to be pulled up. When his helmet was removed on deck, his face was pale with shock. He spoke of a gruesome sight, a field of rotting corpses, men and horses scattered across the seafloor. Captain Kondos, a practical and fearless man, believed the diver had succumbed to nitrogen narcosis, the disorienting rapture of the deep that can plague those who go too far down. To prove the delusion, he donned the heavy gear himself and made the descent. When he returned to the surface, he brought with him not a tale of terror, but one of wonder, and the bronze arm of a statue. What Stadiatis had seen were not bodies, but the ghostly, barnacle-encrusted forms of ancient marble and bronze sculptures, the silent victims of a 2,000-year-old shipwreck. The divers had stumbled upon one of the greatest archaeological treasures ever found. For the next year, with the support of the Greek government, they undertook a perilous and pioneering effort in underwater archaeology. They brought up stunning artifacts, magnificent bronze statues of athletes and philosophers, elegant glassware, intricate jewelry, and massive marble sculptures. The ship was clearly a Roman vessel from the 1st century BCE, a treasure ship laden with the plundered artistic masterpieces of Greece, likely on its way to a wealthy patron in Rome. Amidst the recovery of these beautiful and easily understood treasures, the divers also brought up a single unremarkable lump. It was a piece of corroded bronze about the size of a large book, its surface calcified and fused with the seabed. In its wooden packing case, it was mistaken for a rock and set aside, forgotten in the excitement over the statues. It was deemed insignificant, a piece of nautical scrap or a broken piece of a larger sculpture. No one could have known that this ugly, corroded block was infinitely more valuable than all the breathtaking art it had shared a watery grave with. It was not art meant to imitate life. It was science meant to imitate the heavens. This was the ghost in the deep, a remnant not of a forgotten artist, but of a forgotten mind, waiting patiently for the world to become advanced enough to understand its silent, intricate language. A universe in a box. The rescued artifacts were taken to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, where they caused a sensation. Scholars and the public marveled at the recovered art, a snapshot of Hellenistic grandeur. In the museum's storerooms, the unassuming bronze lump sat for months ignored. Then one day in May of 1902, a strange thing happened. The corroded mass, now drying out in the museum's atmosphere, split apart. As it broke open, it revealed not solid bronze, but a glimpse of something astonishing within. A complex assembly of gear wheels, their tiny triangular teeth precisely interlocking. The archaeologists were baffled. Gears were not unknown in the ancient world. Simple gears had been used in mills and lifting devices. But this was something different. The complexity was staggering, far beyond anything they believed the ancient Greeks or Romans were capable of. The device was a mess of over 30 interlocking gears, packed together with the precision of a modern watchmaker, all housed within a wooden and bronze case covered in faint, almost invisible Greek inscriptions. For decades, the object remained a profound puzzle. It was a technological ghost, an artifact that seemed to be from the future, not the past. Early examinations were limited by the fragile, corroded state of the mechanism. It was not until the mid-20th century, with the advent of X-ray and gamma-ray imaging, that scholars could finally peer inside the corroded layers and begin to unravel its true purpose. What they found, piece by painstaking piece, was a mechanical computer of breathtaking genius. The Antikythera mechanism, as it came to be known, was a celestial calculator. Its intricate gear trains were designed to model the irregular movements of the moon across the sky, a problem that had vexed astronomers for centuries. One turn of a main input crank represented the passage of time, and as it turned, the gears drove pointers across dials on the front and back of the device. The front dial showed the position of the sun and the moon in the zodiac, as well as the phase of the moon. The back dials were even more sophisticated. One was a spiral dial that predicted solar and lunar eclipses with startling accuracy, based on a repeating 223-month cycle known as the Saros cycle. Another dial tracked the timing of important Pan-Hellenic games like the Olympics. The most astonishing discovery was the presence of a differential gear. This is a complex arrangement of gears that allows a single output to be driven by the sum or difference of two inputs. In the mechanism, it was used to accurately model the moon's complex motion by subtracting the effect of the sun's movement from the moon's. This was a level of mechanical sophistication that, according to the established history of technology, would not be seen again in the world until the great astronomical clocks of 14th century Europe, over a millennium and a half later. To find it in a Greek device from the 1st century BCE was like finding a schematic for a jet engine in the tomb of Tutankhamun. It was a complete rewriting of what we thought the ancient world knew and what it could create. This was not a simple tool. It was a philosopher's engine, a portable cosmos, a clockwork universe in a box. The ghost ship's final port of call, the mechanism's impossible sophistication raised another equally compelling question. What was it doing on that ship? To understand the device, one had to understand its vessel. The Antikythera shipwreck itself became a subject of intense study, a time capsule of ancient maritime trade. The ship was a large Roman merchant vessel, a corbita, a heavy, rounded cargo ship designed for capacity, not speed. Analysis of the preserved hull timbers showed it was a massive vessel for its time, perhaps over 100 feet long, built of sturdy elm and oak. It was a workhorse of the Mediterranean, designed to carry the wealth of the East back to the insatiable markets of Rome. The cargo was a curious mix of the practical and the priceless. Alongside the magnificent statues and luxury glassware were more mundane items. Amphorae, the clay jars used for shipping, indicated a cargo of wine and oil, likely from the Greek islands. The ship's anchors, massive lead and wood constructions, were found nearby, suggesting the crew had made a desperate last-ditch attempt to stop the ship from being smashed against the island's cliffs in the storm. Coins found scattered among the wreckage provided a crucial clue for dating the disaster. The coins, mostly from Pergamon and Ephesus, pointed to a date of around 70 to 60 BCE. This was a time of great upheaval and great wealth in the Roman world. Rome was expanding, and its powerful generals and politicians were adorning their city and their private villas with the artistic and intellectual treasures of the conquered Greek world. The Antikythera ship was almost certainly a loot ship, one of many vessels carrying the accumulated wealth of centuries of Greek culture westward to its new masters. Based on the cargo, scholars have pieced together a likely final voyage. The ship may have started its journey in a major port in Asia Minor, perhaps Pergamon, a great center of art and learning. It then likely sailed a winding route through the Aegean, stopping at islands like Kos and Rhodes to pick up more treasures. The statues, some dating back to the 4th century BCE, were already valuable antiques. The glassware was a luxury product from the workshops of the Levant. And somewhere, perhaps on the island of Rhodes, a center for both astronomy and fine metalworking, it took on its most extraordinary piece of cargo, the Antikythera mechanism. The ship was a floating microcosm of the Mediterranean world. The crew would have been a diverse mix of Roman sailors, Greek merchants, and slaves. They were seasoned mariners, familiar with the dangers of the sea. But the Aegean in late autumn is notoriously treacherous. A sudden, violent storm, a grigel, could have caught them by surprise. Blown off course with broken masts and a panicked crew, they would have been powerless as the wind and waves drove their heavy, overloaded ship towards the jagged, unseen rocks of Antikythera. The crash would have been sudden and catastrophic. The ship would have split apart, its treasures and its crew spilling into the deep, dark water, condemned to a silence that would last for 2 millennia. The ship's final port of call was not the bustling harbor of Rome, but the silent, eternal seabed. The mind of the maker, who could have possibly conceived and built such a device? The Antikythera mechanism is so advanced that it could not have been a one-off invention. It must have been the product of a long tradition of astronomical and mechanical inquiry, a tradition whose other physical examples have been lost to time. While the maker's name is not inscribed on the device, the intellectual fingerprints point to a very specific time and place, the Greek island of Rhodes in the 2nd century BCE. The Roman writer Cicero, writing just a few decades after the Antikythera shipwreck, mentions a remarkable mechanical sphere built by the great mathematician and inventor, Archimedes of Syracuse. This device, Cicero says, could model the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. He also mentions a similar device created by his friend, the Stoic philosopher Posidonius of Rhodes. For a long time, these accounts were considered fanciful exaggerations, the stuff of legend. The discovery of the Antikythera mechanism proved that they were not. The Greeks really were building these incredible machines. The prevailing theory is that the mechanism is linked to the work of Hipparchus, arguably the greatest astronomer of the ancient world. Hipparchus worked on the island of Rhodes around 125 BCE. He was a meticulous observer who cataloged the stars, calculated the length of the year with extraordinary accuracy, and even discovered the precession of the equinoxes, the slow, 26,000-year wobble of the Earth's axis, the astronomical cycles embedded in the mechanism's gears, particularly its sophisticated modeling of the moon's motion and its eclipse prediction system, align perfectly with the known astronomical theories of Hipparchus. The mechanism was likely designed by a brilliant mind like Hipparchus and then constructed in a master craftsman's workshop on Rhodes. Imagine that workshop, a place filled with the smell of charcoal fires and hot metal, with diagrams drawn on parchment and walls lined with the simple but precise tools of the bronze smith. The creation of the mechanism would have been a slow, painstaking process. Each gear, some no bigger than a coin, had to be cut by hand from a sheet of bronze. The tiny 60-degree triangular teeth had to be filed with perfect regularity. The calculations to determine the exact number of teeth on each gear and how they would mesh to replicate the complex ratios of Celestial motion would have been a monumental intellectual feat. The maker was not just a mechanic, he was a philosopher. In the Greek worldview, the cosmos was a place of divine order and mathematical perfection. The heavens were the ultimate expression of the rational mind of God. To build a machine that could replicate this celestial order was an act of profound philosophical and scientific piety. It was to create a working model of the mind of God, to demonstrate that the universe was not a place of chaos, but one of predictable, beautiful, and understandable cycles. The Antikythera mechanism was the ultimate expression of this worldview, a fusion of genius-level astronomy, mathematics, and craftsmanship. It was a silent, ticking testament to a lost world of knowledge. The echo in the deep for 2,000 years, the mechanism lay at the bottom of the sea. As empires rose and fell, as the knowledge of the ancient world was forgotten and then slowly rediscovered, the little bronze universe lay dormant. The intricate gears that were designed to trace the majestic arcs of the heavens were frozen in place, their purpose suspended by the crushing, silent pressure of the deep. The salt water gnawed at its bronze body, and the life of the seafloor slowly entombed it in a thick, calcified shroud. The irony is profound. A device created to reveal the perfect, predictable order of the cosmos was lost to the world by the pure, unpredictable chaos of a storm. In its final moments as the ship was torn apart on the rocks, the mechanism, which could predict eclipses decades in advance, could not predict its own imminent demise. It sank into an abyss where the light of the sun and the moon it was designed to track could never reach. When it was finally brought to the surface in 1901, the world it returned to was one its creators could not have imagined. It was a world of steam, electricity, and technologies that would have seemed like magic. And yet, in this one specific area of complex mechanical gearing, the ancient world had been stunningly far ahead of where history had given it credit. The mechanism was a humbling reminder that history is not a straight, uninterrupted line of progress. It is a story of peaks and valleys, of brilliant heights of knowledge that can be lost, and of genius that can be forgotten. The Antikythera mechanism is more than just a clever gadget. It is an echo from a lost conversation about the nature of the universe. It tells us that the ancient Greeks were not just great artists and philosophers, they were brilliant scientists and engineers. They had a grasp of theoretical astronomy and practical mechanics that was not just rediscovered, but in some ways had to be entirely reinvented a millennium later. The ship that carried it is gone, its crew long returned to dust. The brilliant mind of its maker is a mystery, but the device itself survives, a corroded but eloquent testament to their world. It is a sunken sun, a piece of captured starlight that spent 2 millennia in the dark. Its rediscovery has illuminated our understanding of the past, proving that the capacity for human genius is timeless, and that even after 2,000 years of silence, the deepest waters can sometimes give up their ghosts.